Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Murals Live with, I hate to say it, it always sounds so corny when I say your host, Jason Hall, but I am the host of today's show, Jason Hall, also the co-founder and owner of Ride Detroit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here live at Eastern Market, right on Gratiot and the East Fisher Freeway service drive. Got a special guest today. I'm super excited. Today's guest, Kevin Ledo from Montreal, my first international guest. I talked to him last night. Kevin is super excited to do this, and I'm excited to talk to him and bring that to you. First, I want to say what's up to a couple people while I can. What's up, Justin? I see you on. What's happening, Jill? I see some people. I try to say hi when I can because once I get into this, it's very hard for me to answer questions. So by all means, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them to me and I will get those answered to you. Every week we do a little bit of housekeeping to just talk about last week. I want to thank our guest from last week, man, Phil Simpson. If you didn't have a chance to watch it live, you can always go to our Instagram and check back in our Instagram stories and see that. And I've also posted them on my Facebook and my Instagram, which is the Jason of All Trades. So with that being said, today we are sticking with our theme of murals that mean something. Not saying they all don't mean something, but some have a little more meaning than others. The last couple of weeks, we've been going through a lot around the world. And so I've been really paying attention and trying to point out murals that touch people in a way. And this mural is clearly one of the ones that right now is very relevant in the city of Detroit. This is by Kevin Ledo out of Montreal. Kevin told me he spent 10 days up on this thing, 10 days. And we'll definitely get into that. I saw him just get into this, so I know he's there waiting to get in. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and bring Kevin in. Kevin,
What up?
what's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, man. Excellent. It's a little gray out here.
Yeah.
You know,
Same.
same. Good, man. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me yesterday and talk. Just really sort of get you ready for this thing, man. Welcome to Murals Live.
Right on, man.
What are you up to today?
Like pretty regular stuff. Just did some groceries and that's it.
That's what's up, man. I'm glad you survived. We talked about we're both dads, and you had your kid the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you made it through.
Never ending, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
That's what's up. So the first we talked about yesterday. I'm just gonna shoot some questions at you, and then we're just gonna have a conversation. But the first question that people generally ask me is how you got started in art. You know, when did you decide that art was gonna be what you wanted to do?
Well, I've always wanted to do art ever since I was a kid. I just didn't know what kind of art or how I was going to do it. So when I finished high school, I went into a 3-year program, like a career program, and it was for illustration and design. But I knew the whole time that I didn't want to do commercial art, but I studied it anyway. I learned a lot of stuff nonetheless, a lot of technique and stuff. So I kind of actually started out in commercial art for about a year and a half, and then I was so I disliked it so much that I actually quit doing art for a while. I started traveling. I ended up in Taiwan. I was teaching English, and it was out there in Taiwan, you know, kind of when you're away from a lot of all your family and friends and stuff. And I paid off my debts teaching English, and then I was like, I'm gonna save some money and I'm gonna follow my dream to make art a career. And I started, like, I stockpiled a bit of cash, came back to Canada, and I just started painting. And I started working, you know, making stuff to put up in galleries. And it was a while before I started doing murals, actually.
What made you, what inspired the changeover from sort of fine art to murals?
So I never stopped with the fine art stuff. It's just that there was a second point in my life where I quit doing art. So art is a hard gig, especially if I didn't go to, like I didn't do academic art, so I didn't do fine arts in school, and that's kind of one way in. At least you make a lot of connections, you learn a lot about that type of artwork. So when you're working galleries, you kind of end up on the commercial side of things. Anyways, I was hustling super hard for a really long time, like almost a decade. Like I was committed, but it was a really hard time. And I remember having a show in Vancouver, and that totally flopped. And it's a show that I worked on for months. And I flew out there and everything, shipped it out, and it was a total flop. So it was a second point in my life where I quit doing art. And my partner and I, she was having a hard time with work as well. And we're like, look, this is not the life we want to live. So we actually packed up everything and we just moved to Central America, based out of Guatemala, and we started traveling. And I had this idea while we were traveling. I'm like, hey, maybe if one of these places we're staying at, like if I could offer to paint something on their wall and we could stay for free. And I tried for a few places and it didn't quite catch. But then in Costa Rica, one of my buddies was out there, and he's like, hey, since we're both here, let's paint together. And he's like, I'm putting up a mural inside of my friend's restaurant. Maybe you could paint the shutter door out front. And so I did. And then the dude liked it so much, him and his wife, that they offered free food for us at the restaurant every time we went. And then it was like that was the starting point. His family was super into it. They owned a hotel. They commissioned 2 murals, and then his cousin owned a bar, and he commissioned another mural. Like within a month, I believe, month or 5. Yeah, I think it was a month. I did 5 murals, and that's when I quit doing art. And like suddenly I was like super excited about it. Like the reason I quit doing art is because it was just bringing me down. It was weighing so heavy. I was like, I just need a break before I get too negative about it. And then once I started painting large scale, started doing murals, just the game changed for me. I was just like super excited about it. It was super physical. And the end result was like, I painted something, it was there, it was staying, people can see it. It was very different than like painting in your studio alone, painting something and then trying to get it into a gallery, and maybe the gallery would sell it for half the price, like it was a totally different situation. And I kept rolling with it, and it kind of was just at the right time of a lot of mural stuff was going on, like in a mural festival in Montreal, like had their first year, the year I came back. It was just a lot of, I guess I was on the wave. And yeah, that's kind of my mural story.
Wow. So in that, you talked about like literally 3 or 4 different countries that you had just been to at the beginning of it. How many, do you have any idea how many you've been now since then?
No. So I've always been into traveling. Like I love traveling. And so that was another part of it. It was like once I started doing fine art, I was so poor that like traveling just stopped. So that was part of the reason why we split to Central America. But yeah, finally with murals, like I was back into traveling, getting invited to different places around the world, and I've been to some really amazing places, and I feel really blessed to have seen what I've seen. And yeah, I mean, it's really hard work. Like you said, I have 10 days max to do a mural, and sometimes they're just enormous. So it's quite a hustle. And normally I just see the parking lot, but you meet people in the parking lot. Like you go different places and you chat with regular people. You're in a neighborhood. You're not in a hotel, and you're not in the nice part. You actually get the vibe of the city.
So 10 days gave me the perfect segue into this thing. So Rosa Parks. So talk about how this came to be.
So if my work often centers around, like I like to celebrate diversity and multiculturalism. It's kind of like how I grew up. I kind of grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of different ethnicities. We used to always, make fun of each other. And I was always pork and cheese because I'm Portuguese. Anyways, So, as I was talking to you yesterday about this, it was like, as I got older and I kind of moved out of that neighborhood, and especially outside of Montreal, Montreal is so multi-ethnic. I started realizing that, it's not so multicultural or so celebrated to be different. And it kind of like put me on this path to, try to represent and celebrate people who are either in the minority or, I don't know, just I kind of wanted to shine a light on certain people. So I had painted around the world a little bit in different countries for different projects. One was in particular in Jordan, where I painted with some. The project was for like gender equality, and so Rula from 1X Run is from Jordan, and although I had met her maybe a few years prior, that one really stuck out for her because it was her hometown. She wanted to know where it was. She wanted to see it, and so after a little while, she's like, "I want you to paint at murals in the market," and I was totally down. But she proposed the idea of Rosa Parks, and it's exactly in line with what I love doing. So she's like, "How would you like to paint in Detroit, Rosa Parks?" And we got this killer wall, and so I was just down with it right away. But yeah, I have to say that Rula, awesome Rula. It was her idea, as far as I know. I spoke with her about it at the beginning, so that's how it was kind of initiated.
Have you got any feedback from this? Have you heard anybody? Has anybody written you? Because I get a ton. As soon as I told people that you were doing this, everybody immediately was just like, that is one of the pieces that speaks to the city. And I wonder if anybody had given you any feedback because, like I said, I get a ton of it.
Like with most of my murals, I see things pop up on Instagram of people just sharing them. I haven't gotten a lot of like personal feedback or personal stories. I did get this really beautiful image about 2-3 weeks ago of one of the demonstrations, Black Lives Matters demonstrations, walking in front of the mural, and it was just like, like when I saw that, I was like, this is a success. Like this monument to Rosa Parks with this movement happening. I was just so happy, and it was just so beautifully captured. So I didn't hear the story so much, but I see visual images. A lot of people share it.
So we talked about the degree of difficulty on this is high. People think you just pick up a spray paint can and you go to town. Talk through the process of what it took to do this, because we talked about how the wall wasn't exactly the easiest thing to manipulate.
That's right. So whenever I can, I use rollers and brushes. So yeah, you can see the wall there. It's gnarly. So that's not like a regular outside wall. That was a wall that was built to be between buildings. So there was another building there at some point. So yeah, it's a really hard wall to work with brushes and rollers. And so in order to get a good portrait down that wasn't, like really painful to do, I ended up using like a spray gun. I was using regular house paint or like exterior house paint, wall paint, and pouring it into, the container and holding up, like it was a little bit of a heavy container. And I basically, the whole portrait is done like that, done with a spray gun. Other parts of the mural, especially like the flatter parts, was done with rollers, like really long-haired rollers. I did have help from Lex. She was like one of the best assistants I've ever had, and I had a lot of support from murals in the market. Like Lex had her own what do you call it, boom lift. So there's two cherry pickers up there at the same time, which really helped things move along. So for the most part, I just had to focus on the portrait, and Lex really helped me out with filling a lot of the stuff in, and yeah.
That's awesome, dude. That's the cool thing is when I talk to people, I really try to give them the insight because, like I said, people think that you guys just hop up there and get the job done, and they don't know how much sweat and that you put into this. And it was probably pretty warm when you were up there too.
Yeah, well, we didn't have great weather, actually. There was, I think the first day or two, So I was there for 10 days, but I didn't paint for 10 days. There was like, uh, what was happening? It was like some football thing happening. So we couldn't paint one day. And then there was like a bad weather day. And I can't remember what the other thing was. So yeah, I think I lost like 3 days, plus travel days. Like I probably painted 7 days, 6 or 7 days on that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's
What?
like a hustle, and yeah, and the weather, like luckily that wall, like we went into shade at around I think like 1 o'clock or something. So at least the later part of the afternoon wasn't like, really taxing with the sun, because that's always something. The sun is so brutal sometimes.
So people think that this is big, and it is, but this isn't the biggest mural you've ever done.
No, so that's like on the regular size, I suppose, or maybe a little bit bigger than the regular size of mural that I normally do. But it's kind of like that's about 3 stories, I think, maybe a little bit more, 3 regular stories. I mean, 3 large stories. So I've I usually go between 3 and 5 for my murals, but then it jumps all the way to I did the Leonard Cohen mural in Montreal that was just an enormous jump to like 130 feet, which is the equivalent of about 12 stories on an industrial building. So yeah, there was a giant leap and I haven't done anything in between actually. I've only done like 5, 6 stories all the way up to like that 12, 130-foot one.
How do you approach a project like that when somebody calls and they say, "Hey, we want you to do, this building that's this big"? What goes through your mind? Do you think, can it be done? Can I do it? I mean, what goes through your mind?
So right away, I need to know like how what the logistics are and what kind of support I'm gonna get. Because for example, I just got a message from somebody in Calgary who wanted a mural, and I was like, cool, maybe we can chat about this. And then I got the picture, and it's like I think it was like 10 stories or something, and I was like, oh, like I haven't responded yet. I was just, but I'm like, nah, I don't think with that budget we can do it. Like it's an enormous feat. I need a lot of support. So yeah, I guess the first, I think about timeline. I think about what kind of support I have, what kind of budget there is, because you need the proper machinery to hit certain heights, and then you need like people to help you, and then if it's another city, like the travel, the accommodation, the material. So like, there's a lot of things that go into it, and so I'd say like most of the time that somebody approaches me for a mural, it doesn't work out. Maybe like maybe not most of, yeah, probably most of the time, at least half the time, it's people just kind of want to know how it works, and then they realize they're like, oh, that machine costs a lot of money, to get you up there, or whatever the deal is.
So, where is the majority? Is the majority of your work in the U.S. or is it outside, or where could we see the majority of your stuff?
That's a good question. It probably is mostly I've probably painted the most of my work in the U.S. I'm in Montreal. I've got a bunch of work here. So I painted a lot in Montreal, painted a lot in Miami. And then, like a little bit here and there, like in LA, in Portland, um, in West Virginia, in uh, North Carolina.
So, is it
Uh,
is it generally a goal of yours to go outside of Montreal? Like, do you look for jobs so you can sort of see the world?
well, I don't, I don't know how to look for mural jobs. So I'm kind of at the mercy of people approaching me. Like I do my best to get out there and you stay active and like stay in touch with people, particularly if people are interested in my work. But I mean, I think I've approached a few mural festivals here and there. Uh, Maybe like 5 times or something. I think I've only been accepted once to a mural festival that I actually applied for. All the others I've just been invited to. So I don't know how this shit works, to be honest. I do a lot of portraits, so people are drawn to maybe they want to represent somebody in particular. That happens a lot. So I get commissioned to do something like that, or or just like the general idea of like what I do. Sometimes people want to represent, like an idea through portrait or through figures. But yeah, I don't know how this stuff works. I do know that everything fell apart since COVID, but
Yeah,
I hope that the emails start coming in again.
yeah, we talked about that. So you're over in Montreal. How is this affecting you? A lot of people don't think how deep this goes. Everybody's like, "Oh, we're off work, la la la," but you're being affected by this quite a bit.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Like I think I lost about 12, 13 contracts for my year, and there's I've been asked to do a lot of things during COVID, but it's all volunteer things. And I did do some things out of my own um, motivation, like to stay busy at the beginning. Um, but yeah, like and I would love to keep doing that and helping, doing stuff, but it's like I need to make money. Like I know everybody's in a really harsh situation with COVID, but I couldn't. I had to stop saying yes to everything, even though they're like great projects. It's just like at a certain point, I'm like, I have a family too. Like I need to really hustle. So I'm doing whatever I can to keep it going. I've even, for fun, I've painted some murals in Montreal. I did a couple of really wacky collaboration pieces with my friend Labrona in Montreal, just to, it was the first of the season, just to get it going again. But they're small, they're like alleyway ones, like that are like a little bit, like one story or 1.5 stories high. Nothing like what I do when I paint large murals. But yeah, it's clearly affected me. I mean, it's affected a lot of people, obviously. But I am trying to just, hustle and see what I could make happen. Um, Kind of trying to keep my chin up about it too, because I think a lot has to be said about being optimistic in the sense that you are not defeated. You don't have a defeated vibe, and you're staying active and you're still doing stuff. And I think there's something to be said about it that will kind of help bring things in.
Yeah, man. And so then we have COVID, and then we roll right into the current status.
Oh wait, you cut out.
We talked yesterday about how surreal it is that people think about this as being a strictly regional or like country problem, U.S. But I mean, Montreal is going through its own thing.
Yeah, I mean Canada is. These demonstrations are like worldwide. Like I saw a picture of what was happening in Berlin, anti-racist, anti-police brutality in Berlin, and it was one of the biggest in the world. Like this, what's happening in the U.S. is really caught on everywhere. Everybody's demanding justice. Everybody's, asking for an end to systemic racism, whether it's in the police or, like there's in Canada, they're talking a lot about now the federal police, the RCMP, and there's a lot of discussion going on about that. And so, like even on the municipal level, like people are like our mayor is talking about putting body cams on the police officers, and I know that's happening, in cities everywhere. So it's a really it's turbulent times, and like maybe it's scary for some people, but it's also like super exciting. Like it's rare that so much change can happen in such a short amount of time, and that people are just really afraid of change. And I know some of these, sometimes some of the demonstrations get violent and stuff, and maybe that scares people, but like that's a small part of what's happening here. This is a shift that's happening, and it's not all going to happen at once. It's going to take a while, but it's a beautiful thing what's happening right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just having the ability to have the conversation about what's happening is, we've been for so long quiet about what's happening all over the place, and even when people did speak, no one listened. So now we
Yeah,
have that time.
it's like yeah, that's it. It's like everybody was just too busy. Like people care, but they're like, but what can, the classic, like, but what can I do? Or, I've got other things to take care of. But like COVID was the perfect storm in a sense that like everything slowed down and people are like, yeah, things are fucked. we need to work on it. People started demanding that things get better.
Absolutely, absolutely. We talked about this mural being a backdrop to a photo, but you've had, some other pieces that have been some pretty monumental backdrops. We talked about it yesterday. Can you talk to the people about the story you told me about the piece that you did in Portland?
Yeah, so I did a project. Some of the projects I've done in the Middle East are with program called APT-ART. So they're awareness and prevention through art. And they do a lot of work with refugee children. And the artist often works with the kids and then makes a mural. So this was the first edition of that, but it was in the US. And it was right before Trump was elected. And there was a lot of talk, a lot of, like talk that we didn't want to hear. A lot of pointing fingers and discrimination happening, and it was just the beginning of it. And so Sam, who's directing that program, was like, we need to do something in the U.S. So Portland is like a city. I can't remember how you say it exactly, but they accept a lot of refugees from around the world. And so we met some kids at a high school, at an after-school program, and a lot of the kids were refugees. And we spoke with them, we brainstormed, and I photographed a bunch of them, and I was set to paint one of the girls on the wall. And so the girl that I chose, it was just this beautiful picture, and she was kind of looking up with like a bit of a smile and some hope. And she was from Iraq, and she had the headscarf. And so, I felt really raw about this, but the building owner refused to put that up. And, without saying why. He was kind of like, you said it was going to be somebody younger. Like, he said something that was completely unrelated to why he didn't want it anymore. And he was threatening to shut down the project. In retrospect, I don't know, the guy, it was a nice guy. And I don't know if it was because of his beliefs or maybe he was afraid of how people would react. Who knows? Like, it's really hard to say. Like, I know the climate in the US can get really rough about that kind of thing sometimes. But I was really stoked to paint her. Anyhow, last minute, the night before to start, and he was threatening to shut it down, I was like, all right, I'm going to paint this girl, but I'm going to paint a black little girl. And I painted, a girl that was in the age that he thought I was going to paint. So he could not say no, basically. And so I painted this girl. Unfortunately, it was not somebody I photographed. It was really last minute. It was like a stock photo, which I kind of manipulated, made her look a little bit different. But I painted her. It was like a 5-story mural right downtown Portland. And I know last night we were talking about murals that, whether you like them, how much you like them, or how I was talking about how it changes how I like them over time. So this mural, I kind of painted it quick. I was kind of like not that stoked that it wasn't the original idea that I wanted to paint. But what happened was a beautiful thing again, was like, so I painted this little girl, and then I think it was like a week later or something, it was some of the first Black Lives Matter marches. And they went right by that mural. And it was just like, at that moment, I was like, yes, this was meant to be. This is, this is important. This is a monument to the beginning of what's happening here. So yeah, there's that. And since then, especially during these times, I've seen some photos. People are photographing it a lot lately, especially with what's happening. I mean, the artwork itself is called Under the Same Sky. So it's a very inclusive idea that we are all one. We're all a people, no matter what your skin color is, or your culture is, your ethnic, your beliefs. So that was kind of the vibe I was going for. But it's just amazing that there's a 4 or 5 story black little girl in downtown Portland right now, with a nice smile looking up.
That's So we take questions, and they do come in. So one of the questions we got is, do you have any rituals that you have that you do when you start working?
Oh wow, rituals. Well, one thing that kind of like, it's really always kind of a hectic energy before starting a mural. I get a little bit nervous about the lift, even though after a day or two, it's totally comfortable. There's one thing I enjoy doing is mixing paint getting all the colors ready. That way I'm like, I'm active, I'm doing something, I'm like getting that first energy out. And then I go for it. But beyond that, I don't think I have any real rituals. I'm usually so hyped on adrenaline, and ready to attack. So yeah, I
Okay.
guess that's it.
Okay. Do you have any advice for any artists that are thinking about starting out?
Sure, yeah. I always kind of say the same thing. Is just like, you have to not wait for anybody to give you permission to do what you want to do. Basically, like, if you want to paint murals, you just got to start painting murals. You just got to, you know, you got to paint something indoors in wall, and then you grab a snap of that, and then, I mean, like, I most of my work is legal. It's obviously easier to have more time when it's legal. Get a wall outdoors. Maybe it's in an alleyway, and then, get another shot of that one, and you just kind of start showing people what you're capable of. You start learning, and you kind of scale up as you go. Like, I've done stuff for free for so long. I mean, I still do stuff for free, but like, I was so poor for so long. You got to know that it's a hustle. Like,
For
it's it's a
sure.
it's a real struggle. You got to really love what you're doing.
And you're a grown up. Like people think you're like a kid out here who doesn't have, like you said, you got a family, man, and you got a
Yeah, I'm like 41.
yeah. Come on, man. This is not a game anymore, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what is one of the most important tools for you in creating art?
Well, the tools. Wow. I mean, just some, the essential tools. Hey, David, just saying what's up. Um, one of the essential tools is obviously, the materials, like being able to access the walls and stuff. And sure, you don't always need lifts. You could get a ladder. Like, I've done so many murals with ladders and stuff. But in terms of like design, I was using a computer for years, just like plotting out the design, like the composition, the colors. So, I mean, for me, I think it's really important to like know what you're doing. I mean, David Loof is Mr. June is on here right now, and he would say the opposite, because he kind of like freestyles it. But for myself, I need to know what I'm doing, so I can attack it properly, because I need to have a good reference, because my artwork is kind of photorealistic, and then I need to know what colors I am, so that it all blends together well and gives a certain vibe. So I really do plan it out first. Right now, I'm working on my iPad Pro. It's been really helpful to like change colors and adjust things super quickly. So for me, that's super important. I mean, even in graffiti, like, people would sketch out their pieces in the black books. Like, I think it's super important to sketch things out and have an idea of what you're doing, unless you're a pro like Mr. June.
How do you stay inspired? Is there ever a time we all go through those times where, of course, where it's like something you love. There's that saying, "Don't do something you love for a living."
Yeah.
But how do you stay inspired?
I'm just like so curious about everything all the time. And I definitely go through periods where nothing's firing in my head. But I think one of the most important things for myself, and I think maybe for a lot of creatives, is actually it's important for you to have a lot of experiences and a variety of experiences. So that, because you make connections in your brain by things that are not related to art. Like, you get ideas by doing, like, hiking a mountain, or like going for a bike ride, or like going out and boogieing with some friends, listening to music. I love music so much. It makes connections in my brain. I love reading. I love science. I mean, reading. I wish I could say I read more. Ever since I have a smartphone, I'm not reading as much. But I'm reading a lot of like articles still. Books, unfortunately, have been put to the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love listening to podcasts about science, about culture, about psychology, and all of that stuff. Like, when I'm feeling uninspired, I just like to learn about something unrelated, or sometimes maybe it's about listening to some other artists, what they think about in their artwork. But yeah, I think staying curious and always learning, getting different experiences is like hyper important for me.
Gotcha. All right, another question coming in. I know the answer to this, but do you have a personal favorite piece that you've done somewhere?
So yeah, I don't, like I was saying, we spoke about this a little yesterday. I don't think I have. I have a couple that I really like. I guess. I mean, the Leonard Cohen mural is just so enormous, and it, like when I look at it, I get my heart flutters, and I'm like, how the hell did I do that? That's so big. Um, in terms of like, there's things I can critique about it and know it could be better. So that's the kind of a problem. Is like sometimes I'm stoked about some of my murals and I think they're the best, and then like I look at it another time and be like, oh, I could have worked that some more, or that's a little off, or if whether it's color or it's like rendering or. But I don't know if I've got a favorite piece, to be honest. Like I think it changes from time to time. I probably often my the latest piece is like one of my favorites. So let's say for now, my favorite piece is probably the one of Nate D in Miami.
Okay, so look that one up. Nate D, Miami. Check that one out. Have you ever been doing like your work and then decided, you know what, I want to try something different and done like a completely different style that people don't know about?
Yeah, yeah. So this past it's been about 2 years. I was super nervous about it at the beginning. I started just doing abstract piece. If you look at my piece behind you, like you can see that like half the artwork is abstract. It's just like geometric abstraction. So like without the portrait, or let's say the portrait was just one shape, that's just an abstract painting. And so I've always been interested in it, but about 2 years ago, I was like, it's time to just take out the figure and see what I can do with abstract work. So I've been taking it a lot more seriously in the past year, and I've been experimenting with a lot of mark making, a lot of color balancing, um, different techniques, different materials. And so yeah, I'm kind of like switching back and forth between abstract artwork now and figurative artwork, and one always informs the other. It's a brilliant thing. Like if I do a bunch of small abstracts, which I've done for 1X Run actually, we released it on 1X Run. I did a series of them, and it really informed like my portrait painting in terms of like being looser and letting the paint do its thing. Like for years, I've been so tight ass about making sure everything is perfect and not having brush marks. And so yeah, it's been a good exercise for me to kind of like let go and learn a little bit more about paint and what you can do with it.
And those prints are sold out, correct? We cannot get them.
Well, they are actually not prints. There was a run of abstract studies, and so I think there's definitely some on there still. They're like small scale, like 9 by 12 um, pieces. So yeah, there's definitely some on there still.
Fantastic. So, what's up for the future? Okay, well, let's talk about recent projects. You got anything going on right now you want to talk about?
Not a lot going on. I'm doing. I'm still super excited about doing abstract pieces. So I keep like stretching new canvases and ordering canvases. Always excited to like see what I can do with actually sometimes without a plan. It's actually becoming really fun for me to do some stuff without a plan and abstract work. Uh, so I'm excited to keep doing that in my studio. I'm doing some commission work to keep this thing afloat, to keep me painting. So right now I'm doing a commission for someone's a portrait. I might be doing a small commission in Montreal for an Airbnb. But in terms of there's a big project that might happen in Toronto. I'm hoping that goes down. But besides that, there's a lot that are just like maybes right now. So um, let's hope let's hope they take off.
Yeah, everybody hears that. So the what we're saying here is you need to hire Kevin and you need to bring him out and do an amazing mural in your city. How can we support you, man? Where can we find your work right now? How can we get it?
So like on Instagram, obviously, I've got almost all my work on there. I've got I started working this year with Station 16 Gallery, or they just opened a new branch of their gallery called S16. So they're in Montreal. In London, I work with Jewel Contemporary. Um, let's see, in Chicago? I got a little bit of work with Line Dot Gallery. Um, yeah, I'm trying to hustle, try to get work out there as much as possible. But I don't only do murals. So like, if the problem of getting across the border, which right now it is, the borders are shut down. If that persists for a while, like I'm still doing paintings in my studio. That's something that's never gone away, and I'm always active doing.
That's what's up. Well, Kevin, thank you for taking your morning and hanging out with us.
I appreciate it.
Got a ton of questions that I'm sure I'll be trying to answer, so I'll be getting a hold of you later on today.
Absolutely.
And it was a pleasure. Thanks again.
It was nice to talk to you.
Kevin Ledo, Murals in the Market. Come down and check out his incredible mural. Look him up on Instagram. Google him so you can definitely see his Litter Cohen stuff and his bigger work. Once again, Kevin, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you soon.
Peace, man.
Later. All right, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in to another Murals Live. That was amazing. The beautiful part of my job is that not only do I get to talk to all these cool artists and hopefully pass along that information to you, but we also do tours of Murals in the Market. If you would like to book an e-bike tour or a walking tour, go to ridedetroit.com. If you want to support some of the artists or all of the artists, please buy lots of art. You can go to muralsinthemarket.com or onetimesrun.com and buy stuff there. And any questions that you have, once again, please shoot them to me. My Instagram is the Jason of all trades. Go over there and add me. Let's do a tour together. Talk to you next week, everybody.